Hi there everyone, my name is Kelly and today I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to create your own bolster for restorative yoga practice, perhaps Yoga Nidra or supported Shavasana. You do not have to be familiar with yoga to get the benefit out of using a support like this. I'll show you a quick demo of a couple of ways you might use this bolster at the end of the video. So the materials that you will need to create your bolster, and this you can assemble and disassemble whenever you need to. So not a sewing project. That's not my jam. So a couple of different materials that you'll need. If you have an extra yoga mat, grab that. We're going to use that. And then you're going to need one blanket, maybe a double or queen size blanket would work the best. Even a king size blanket could work. I have a quilt here. They're a little bit firmer than your fluffy kind of microfiber blanket, which I also really love. We're going to use this as well. So if you don't have an extra mat, then I would recommend that you find two blankets that you could use to create your bolster. So to recap, an extra mat and a blanket, or two blankets. And next, you're gonna need a couple of belts or bands to secure your bolster so that once we roll it up, it's going to stay stable and it's not gonna roll apart on you. So some options could be a yoga strap. Some people have canvas belts that often have a similar clasp to a yoga strap. You could try one of those. And I also have a TheraBand here. You could use any sort of exercise band for this as well. So you'll need 2 to 3 of these. So go ahead and grab your materials and then join me back here. Pause your video for a moment, and when you come back, we're gonna get ready and create our bolster. Okay, so a regular rectangular restorative bolster is about 28 inches long. That allows you to have the length to support yourself from the back of the pelvis to the back of the head, the whole way up the spine and through the back of the head. So ideally, that is about the length that you're going to want to create for the bolster that you're going to make. So if you're using your yoga mat, it may not quite be that long, but it will give you that firmness underneath your blanket that will feel really lovely for you. And I'll tell you when we go into the demo where to place the part of the bolster that you've created along your spine so that you'll get the most out of that support. Okay, so you're going to want to take one of your blankets and create a width, which will be the width of your bolster, and I would recommend making it about 28 inches. You don't have to use a meter stick. You can just kind of, sense the length from your crown to the back of your pelvis and have about that length to create your bolster. So the blanket is folded that length. Because this quilt is fairly thin, if I roll it just from here, what's going to end up happening is that my bolster is going to be really narrow. And as you can see, this lovely guy has quite a bit of circumference. So we want to establish quite a nice broad space if possible. So if you have a second blanket, you can unfold the blanket to be again about the length of that 28 inches. Obviously, I've got a little bit more work to do here. So we will just shift the blanket around slightly until we get it about right. It might not be perfect. Now, as you can see, this blanket has a lot of little knots at the end of it. These were pretty popular a couple of years ago, and my sister's mother-in-law created this one for me. It's very special to me. So I'm gonna have a little bit of extra at one end. That's totally fine. And I've got one end that's flush with the first blanket, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And then I'm going to start to roll this whole figure up. If you had a second yoga mat, rather than using this second blanket, line your yoga mat up with one end of your 28-inch blanket, okay? And then you're gonna probably have a little bit of blanket left at the end of the yoga mat, where the yoga mat ends, and that's totally fine. So just, you can go ahead and leave that there. And then we're gonna start to roll the blanket up, and you can see that this blanket has a scalloped end. So I'm going to tuck that in first, and I'm gonna roll tightly, fairly tightly, coming all the way through to the other end of the blanket. And hopefully I will get enough knot underneath my quilt so that I won't feel those bumpy knots along my spine when I get prepared to do my restorative practice. So now you've got your bolster rolled, and the last step is to secure the blankets together. So I'm gonna start with the band, and I'm going to bring it underneath the bolster, and I'm going to secure the knot in the band at the space where I've got like the ends of the blanket rolled, and these will be away from my body when I lie on the bolster. I won't be lying right on top of this knot or the funky end of the blanket. So I'm just gonna tie this in a knot. The rubber band will probably stay if I just did one knot, but let's do two just to be sure. There we go. Okay, and then we'll take the yoga strap, and I want to make sure the metal clasp again is at the end of where I've wrapped the blanket around, and secure your strap or your belt, whatever you're using. Number 2. And finally, last one, coming under the bolster, wrapping around, looping through both of the rings, and then pulling the end of the strap through the ring closest to me, securing the clasp, good, around the end of the blanket. Okay, and then you might just want to like tuck these in a little bit, especially if like I have a little bit extra blanket here, so I can bring, I'm not so concerned about the rubber band, but I can bring all of this extra fabric down and away from my bolster. If you need to make any adjustments, make them. Okay, you've just created your own bolster. If you like, you can bring this to the studio for the next little while, but now you also have a bolster that you can use at home for your own personal practice, which I'm really excited about for you. So what I really love to practice with the bolster is I love to elevate the spine. So if you have a yoga block, optional, you can stack your new bolster up on the block. You could use the lowest setting of the bolster or the mid setting of the bolster. I think with this block, which is quite narrow, the low setting is going to work a little bit better. And then I would encourage you to just grab another throw blanket, and you could lay that second blanket, I guess this is the third blanket for most of us. We can lay this blanket right along the bolster. Good, and then you might turn one end down a little bit, which might give you a nice little head support too. If you don't like the ends of your blanket connected there, maybe give it a flip over. You're gonna sit at the end of the bolster. I'm actually gonna use a second bolster too, which I just wanna show you how to support behind the knees as well. The bolster's gonna rest right underneath the knees. It's not up deep into the quadriceps or low over the calf muscles for this particular position. It's right under the knees. So when you lay back, you might have to readjust the legs a little bit to connect to that position again. So I'm gonna just press the end of my bolster down, lie back. Oh yeah, good. And then if you have an extra blanket over the top of your bolster, this is probably my favorite part. You can go ahead and snuggle the sides of your blanket in and against the side of your neck and your head. Good. Open your palms. Wiggle your shoulders toward each other. Reposition the lower bolster under your knees if you're using one. And start to drop in here. You want to have a long spine so the chin is slightly tucked. Feel the expansion of your in-breath. And let your body dissolve into your bolster on your out-breath. And rest here for some time. Maybe using a guided meditation or simply savoring the silence. Thank you for watching. I hope to practice with you again soon. Namaste.